Hey, welcome to my channel. I make weekly art tutorials, paint-alongs and vlogs, and in this video I'm going to be taking you through the paintings that I did for a recent landscape challenge. Paintscape was essentially an art challenge that involves painting 15 beautiful African landscapes in any medium that you want over the period of 30 days. And it was launched in October because here in the UK that's when we have Black History Month, and I thought it would be nice to not only practice my watercolour painting but also practice just my landscape painting. So in this video I'll be taking you through the speed paintings that I did as well as the main lessons that I learned when doing this challenge. The supplies that I used for this video were my Moleskine watercolour sketchbook, and I got a fresh one for it, the Watercolour colour sheets. I also used Unipin fine liners, and my brushes were, I only used two brushes for the whole challenge, the Princeton Aqua Elite watercolour paintbrush, and then I also used a travel brush that I got from Amazon. And the only reason that I switched, both were the same size, but the only reason that I switched was because the travel brush, by the nature of the name, is just easier to travel with, and it allowed me to paint on the go while I was commuting. I really wanted Nigeria to be my favourite painting, but unfortunately it wasn't. I really struggled to paint it, and I think because I didn't like the original picture and also because I was getting familiar with the Viviva colours, so I wasn't quite used to them yet. I've done a review and an unboxing video about the Viviva colour sheet, so if you want to check that out then please do. When doing an art challenge, it's always helpful to actually set yourself a goal, especially if one hasn't been set by the challenge itself. So for this challenge, the aim was to paint 15 landscapes. I'm going to be honest, for me, my main aim was to just complete the landscapes, more focused on like time management and getting it done. But that being said, I think it may have been more helpful for me if perhaps I focused on color mixing, or if there was something specifically art related that I wanted to get out of the challenge. Obviously, there are a lot of lessons that I got from it that I'm going to be sharing, whether it be to have fun, to work on color mixing, to work on composition. By thinking about these things, especially when you're doing a challenge, then you can actually work on not only having fun but also tangibly improving your art. Speaking of colour mixing, I really enjoyed doing this painting, and I think it's because of all the colour mixing that I was doing with the greens, just to kind of enrich the greenery in the painting. I just felt like I was using colours that I wouldn't have normally used to add more depth and to add more shadows. So yeah, I really enjoyed doing this second painting. One thing to be mindful of is start off by painting bigger shapes, block colours, and then go into adding details. There are different ways to achieve this. One way is to try and simplify everything that you're looking at into shapes. The other thing that you can do is use a bigger brush. It will make you a bit more mindful about actually getting down the big shapes and the big details first. And if you feel that later on you need a smaller paintbrush, then you can do that, but at least you're aware, okay, I'm going to start with this big paintbrush, I'm going to get down the base colours, I'm going to get down the general tonal values, and then I can add details. One of the things that I absolutely loved about this painting was just how warm all the colours were. All the colours are just warm and rich. Even the sky looks like a warm blue. But one of the things that I really struggled with was just doing wet on dry. Like basically I was trying to layer and it just wasn't working. And as a result, I even had to end up using my heat gun to just try to dry the layers as much as possible so that I could go on top and add extra details. So that was quite a struggle. So although I think it is a very good principle to just start off with the general shapes and the general colours and tones, I do think that you also have to be flexible with the materials that you're using and what you're painting. And for example, with the Viviva colour sheets, it was quite difficult to do big shapes all the time because I wasn't able to layer effectively. And I kind of go into it a bit more in the review that I did about the colours themselves, but essentially as a result it meant that sometimes I would have to add extra details, or I wouldn't be able to do a base colour where I would have otherwise liked to. Thank you so much to everyone who subscribed and left a comment. I really appreciate you, and I can't believe how quickly we're growing. And before I turn this into like an Oscar acceptance speech, let's get back into it. To be perfectly honest, this was one of the few paintings that went how I wanted it to go. And I don't know if it's because I'd been using the paints for a bit more and I was a bit more familiar, but I do think it's just that I didn't have to layer as much. And it was just so nice to get such lovely gradients, both in the water and in the sky and in the sand. The greens that I love in this set I got to use as well. So I don't know, it's not my favorite painting, but I think it's pretty close. It's pretty high up there, and it was definitely one of the nice ones to paint. Very relaxing. This painting was the perfect kind of reminder to balance making the most of the time you have, i.e. painting on a commute, with actually painting in an enjoyable way and perhaps in a good setting. So I did do some of the paintings in the commute, and quite often they're the ones that I wasn't able to record. But yeah, it just wasn't possible to finish that there, and I think I was getting quite distracted. The lighting was changing all the time, and it was a painting that I found challenging to begin with. Like, even looking at the actual picture, I knew, like, okay, this is going to be a hard one to paint. So I basically packed up or got to my station, I can't remember which happened, and completed it when I got home. And I must say, I like the waterfall bit of the painting. I like kind of sunset fiery colors, but it's just darker than I wanted it to be. I wanted the bottom bits to be darker and the clouds to be lighter, and with these paints I'm not able to lift, so once I'd put that color down there was really just no going back. If you've been on my channel before, then you've probably seen me turn pictures into black and white. And this is because it helps you understand the tonal values. And what I mean by that is that things that are further away tend to be less saturated, whereas things that are quite close tend to be more saturated. It can be a bit tricky trying to figure it out, especially when you're starting off. And a way to kind of overcome that, or to have a bit of a better understanding of that, is to turn the picture into black and white. That way you can see where your most saturated colours or your darkest colours will be placed without being confused by the colours themselves, if that makes sense. It is still something that I am working on, and I think until I get the hang of it 100%, I'll keep mentioning it. This kind of goes hand in hand with also thinking about contrast, and when I look back at my pictures, I tend to find that the paintings that I loved the most are the paintings that had the right balance of contrast. You want to have like a harmonious mixture. You can quite often pick it out when looking at the pictures themselves, because certain colors will contrast, but also when you look at tones, so when you look at things in black and white, you can also have some idea of the contrast as to whether the whole picture is too dark or whether it's all too light. For the most part, my tips have been focused on like the technicalities of painting and art techniques, etc. But I think that it goes without saying that there are some things that you can get from a challenge as well, that there are some other tips that may be useful, especially when doing art challenges. So these are things like time management. Try to plan out your day or your week so that you know when exactly you're going to dedicate to doing this challenge, and set realistic timelines. So if you know it normally takes you 3 hours to do a painting, then don't say that you're going to only allocate, 15 minutes. You risk setting yourself up for disappointment. Be flexible, so understand that sometimes things will not necessarily go to plan, and that's okay. I had to do a few of my paintings on the train, which obviously was less than ideal, but we have to be flexible. Set up and prepare as much as is practically and reasonably possible. So things like having your art supplies easily accessible, having your studio neat, or wherever you're going to paint neat, or at least inspiring if you like working in a creative mess. I think this was one of my favorite paintings. I think it's just the background that I love, the red sand. Oh, amazing. And obviously just be kind to yourself. There were some days that I couldn't physically, that I was just too tired to sit down and to do the painting, which meant that I had to do it the day after, or I had to do it a day late, and that is okay, that is fine. So yes, it's a challenge. Just try and get what you can out of a challenge. Be kind to yourself and don't beat yourself up. Another thing is, if you can do it with someone else, that will make it so much more fun. So one thing that was great with Paintscape was just seeing all the amazing art that other artists created as well. That was completely different to mine, because this was a do this in your style challenge. So yeah, if you can get other artists or other friends to join in as well, or just being inspired by other artists as well, especially if it's an Instagram challenge, quite often if you follow the hashtag, you'll see other people are doing something similar. And I love the complete collection because I finished the challenge in time, unbelievably. And here are all the paintings that I did for this challenge in the month of October for Paintscape. It is still available on Max Paper, so you can do it at any point. It doesn't necessarily have to be in Black History Month. And it's a lovely challenge to just paint beautiful African landscapes. Thank you so much for watching and for making it this far into the video. I hope that you enjoyed it and that you found it useful. Let me know if you made it this far into the video by telling me which of the paintings was your favorite out of the ones that I did. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. You're a real MVP, and I'll see you next week. Bye.